tell me that I am under arrest.
Stop
it!
You're under arrest.
For what? I didn't even do anything. No! You're not touching me.
I know.
Stop it! No! Quit it!
Do it now.
No!
Stop resisting.
No, I'm not resisting. You guys are doing this for
Put
no
your hands
reason.
behind your back. Quit
No,
resisting.
I'm not leaving. I am going. You're not doing this shit to me.
Put your hands behind your back.
No.
I don't know.
You're going to tell me why I'm being arrested. I want to know under what code in violation of the law did I break. I want you to tell me why I'm being arrested. What did I do? What did I do?
Put your hands behind your back.
No, you're going to tell me what I did.
We'll contact Phoenix, and they will hold. Yes, where is your final destination?
I didn't even do anything except purchase a ticket.
They'll know. Yeah, they'll know what's going on.
No,
The pilot flight.
I'm not leaving here with my personal
I will get your stuff.
No
Let's
problem.
go.
Yeah, 3
Walk
a.m.
upstairs.
No, I want a lawyer right now. I want a lawyer. Oh, you're breaking my arm.
We're not trying to break nobody's
Yes, you
arm.
are.
We're
He
trying
is
to get you
twisting my wrist.
Get
Yes, you
up.
are. You son of a gun.
Stand up.
Stop
Now.
it. No, I'm not getting off. I didn't do anything. Quit it. Stop it. No. Quit. Let go of my leg. You're twisting my body.
We're not trying to.
Yes, you are. You stop it. You guys got my arms all tangled behind my neck.
Resisting.
Resisting?
Yes, you are.
How the hell am I supposed to walk? You guys got my arms and both my legs and you're breaking my neck.
No one's breaking your
Yes, you are.
I'm trying to hold on to your arm. Get
Oh,
up
yeah?
now.
Oh, yeah? Oh, how is a person supposed to walk like this?
Are you going to get up?
Let go of
you
my
gonna get up?
arms.
you
You're
gonna
going to
get
tell
up?
me why I'm being arrested.
I've already told you many, many times. Let's go. Are you going to get up?
Then you're going to read me my rights right now.
No, get out of here.
Oh, so no. You're going to read them to me right here and right now.
Let's walk outside. I'm going to walk you out. Come on.
No, I'm not leaving with my personal belongings. This aircraft has my personal belongings. I paid for a ticket to ride this airplane and I'm going home. I'm not leaving. And you're going to tell me why I'm under arrest.
I already told you.
Oh, what is it? For trespassing? I bought a ticket. How am I trespassing? How am I obstructing when you're holding my back and you're breaking my arms? No, I'm not resisting nothing. You're twisting my neck and my arms. Quit! No! Stop it! Right now, damn it! Get off of me! You're gonna give me my personal belongings.
I will get your stuff, but just get off your hands.
Quit! I want to know why I'm being arrested.
We'll tell you as soon as you.
No, you're going to tell me right now. Okay, no, you're going to handcuff me and then you're going to tell me.
We'll let you know.
Why am I under arrest? What did I do? Under what? Go ahead and arrest me then.
We're gonna.
Good, then do it. Good, then you're going to tell me what I did because I have a right to face my accusers in the court of law. Yeah, I do. And what did I do?
We're gonna explain it to you.
Oh, you're going to explain to me where?
Right outside here, okay?
Right outside where?
We're gonna walk off the airplane and we'll explain it to you.
I want a lawyer right now.
You can get one.
I want one right now.
Well, you're not gonna get one.
I want to call my attorney. You're not taking my personal property. Under maritime law, you have no right to take my personal property. Who has the authority? Who has the authority to sit here and take my personal property? And who has the authority to arrest me under what law? I want to know right now. You're going to tell me, quit touching my property. I want a lawyer right now. I want to call my attorney.
Come on, let's go.
I'm not going anywhere with you. You are taking me against my free will.
Well, in a piece for Leo Weekly, that's a paper in Louisville, Black Lives Matter organizer Chanel Helm offered some tips for defeating racism, and it reads like a mixture of Mao's Little Red Book and your third-grade Christmas card list. Helm's list includes telling white people to give their homes away to black people and asking white women to get white men in their workplace fired. Jasmine Rand is an attorney and a Black Lives Matter supporter, and she joins us tonight. Jasmine, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So the core premise of Black Lives Matter, for whatever it's worth, I'm totally for. I don't think that police brutality is acceptable, or brutality of any kind, actually. But it seems to me the one thing we don't need at this hypercharged, divided moment in American history is public figures encouraging more division, encouraging us to think of ourselves as members of a group first instead of Americans first. And this piece seems like a perfect example of that. Here's Chanel Helm's second recommendation for making the country better. Quote, white people, if you're inheriting property you intend to sell upon acceptance, give it to a black or brown family. You're bound to make that money in some other white privileged way. That's just attacking people, right? I mean, how can you be for that?
Well, first, I don't want my words taken out of context. So I don't agree with every bullet point of the list that she's drafted. However, I do understand the underlying messages and principles. And I think that the underlying messages and principles are something important for our nation to understand. Carlson, you and I both grew up with white privilege, which means we didn't have to think about race first while growing up.
White privilege is the concept that the economic, social, and political institutions in liberal democracies like America benefits whites while disadvantaging racial minorities. Somehow. The evidence, though, doesn't back up the claim, no matter how often it's cried out by liberals.
You actually, I mean, what you're doing is making a generalization based on race, which is the textbook definition of racism. You're assuming that a person's race is the most important thing about him. There are plenty of white people in this country who grew up with no privilege at all, and there are a lot of black people, including some of my neighborhood, who are very privileged and great people. And, you know, you know what I mean? Like, a person's race is not always the most important thing about that person, but you seem to think it is.
I completely agree, and once again, we're here and you're putting words in my mouth. That's not what I've said at all. In fact, what I wanted to say before I was cut off is that I think that the issue in our nation is more an intersection of race, of poverty, of national origin. There are multiple factors that are coexisting simultaneously that as a nation we can no longer pick apart and say, you know, make generalizations based on black and white, because poverty is such a big issue in our nation. And you're right, I'm a first-generation college student, so I can completely, you know, appreciate what it's like to grow up, you know, slightly above a poverty line and how hard you have to work to put yourself through school. But what she's saying is she's making an extremely important point that is undeniable, that still in our nation today, African Americans remain some of the most unprivileged groups. Native Americans are among the most unprivileged groups who do not have access to the education, to health care, to college, university, equal opportunities in the way that many white Americans do.
I'm Jay Feza from The Rebel, and let me explain to you why white privilege is bullshit. Here's a fact. Whites as a racial group do not have the highest household median income in America. Asians do. According to the Institute on Assets and Social Policy, Asian American median household income is $57,000 per year. White Americans, on the other hand, have a household median income of $48,000 per year. If we break this down by ethnicity, you really start to see the wealth gaps. Japanese American households make $70,000 a year, while French American households make $63,000 a year. Iranian American households make $66,000 a year, while Dutch American households make $59,000 a year. In fact, the three ethnic groups that, on average, make the most household income in America by descending order are Indian Americans, Filipino Americans, and Taiwanese Americans. How can the notion of white privilege exist when non-white racial groups make more money than whites? In purely economic terms, Asian privilege makes more sense as a concept than white privilege, but you're never going to hear liberals complain about Asian privilege. That'd be racist.
And what she's calling upon white Americans to do is to call out racism.
Slow down. Okay, hold on. First of all, she's addressing this to white people, okay, which by its nature is divisive, and I would argue racist, as if all white people have something in common that's meaningful. They don't. At all. I mean, a recent arrival from New Zealand has nothing in common with my kids. You know what I mean? It's like the premise itself is false. And she's basically saying, give your house or your possessions to someone of a certain color. Again, she's assuming that the person's color is the most important thing. Why would you want to be in the same world as someone like this? Why would you defend this? I don't understand.
Well, you're saying that I'm defending her bullet points, and I'm not at all. I think talking about her letter is not productive for our nation. What we need to talk about is the underlying principles of her letter and what it says. And what she's saying is that power never concedes itself, that white people do have a responsibility. When you see racism in the workplace, it is our job to call it out, as it is a black person's job to call it out.
Okay, then why not just, which I agree with, but then why not just say people? Why are you and why is she using people's race as a category? Why not say Americans? If you see someone say something ugly, you know you've got a responsibility to try to make it better. Why are you referring to people by their race? I don't understand.
Liberals do complain about the disparity between the average black household versus white household. They claim that because blacks on average make less household income and less money than whites in general, that's a sign that our economic systems have fallen and we're living in a racist society. Ooh, boogeyman, the economic system is against you. Despite their claim, though, certain black ethnicities like Nigerians and Ghanaians are well off. Nigerian household income is $61,000 per year. Ghanaian household income is $57,000 per year. How can liberals argue that we live in a society that economically disenfranchises blacks when Nigerian Americans have a higher household income than Dutch Americans and French Americans, and Ghanaian Americans have a higher household income than Albanian Americans, for instance? The question that any honest intellectual should ask themselves is, why do these particular black ethnicities have a much higher household income than other black ethnicities and even higher income than other white ethnicities?
Because, again, you wouldn't understand because you've lived with white privilege your entire life. You don't understand what it is to be in the position of an African-American woman who has faced discrimination.
Now you're getting so dumb. Look, I'm trying to take you seriously, but I can't. What you're telling me is that our education system is really bad, actually. Unfortunately, I guess I knew that. Jasmine, thanks for joining us. We'll be right back.
And this is when you start to see the logic of white privilege fall apart as a concept. We're supposed to believe that there's this racist economic system out there oppressing minorities, when in reality, the economic problems minorities face in our society are almost entirely caused by their own actions or lack thereof. It's almost entirely caused by the negative aspects of culture. The National Center for Policy Analysis came up with challenging but doable steps in escaping poverty in America. In fact, they simply titled their findings of their study, "How Not to Be Poor." There are 2 steps in particular that a person or group of people should do in order to not be poor. Number 1, stay in school. Graduating high school, a technical school, college, or university dramatically increases your chances to not be poor. Of those people who complete some form of college, only 6.6% fall below the poverty line. Blacks, on average, have a dropout rate of 31%. Whites, on the other hand, have a dropout rate of 14%. Is it any surprise, then, that whites have a higher income? They do drop out of school less often, after all. Meanwhile, 17% of all Nigerian Americans have master's degrees. Is it any surprise, then, that Nigerian Americans are so economically successful while other black ethnicities are not? Nope.
Blackface. It's everywhere. I feel like I'm back in 1950.
Yeah, man.
Katy Perry, she in the news.
She doing her some cooning.
She got these nice hot shoes out on the market.
I mean, I don't think that's actually blackface, but who in the hell would buy that?
It is blackface. It's a blackface.
I ain't seen no damn coon with blue eyes before.
Well, a blackface is a white person with the black on the face.
Oh,
It's blackface.
it's blackface, huh?
Yeah, so they pulled her shoes. But she's not the only person in the news to do some blackface action.
Gucci, man. They got all kinds of coon gear.
Yeah, look at Gucci. Gucci, they came out with a blackface sweater.
Man, is that a turtleneck put up around the mouth?
Yeah.
It's a good coon sweater you got there.
Keep your face nice and warm in the cold.
Yeah, and I like how you got the red lips on it. It accentuates the lips. Get that good cooning going.
That's a damn good-looking coon sweater.
It's just simple reality. If you graduate from school, obtain degrees, you'll probably have a higher income. That's why Nigerian Americans have more household income than other black ethnicities. And 2, prepare to be a parent as much as you can if you're going to be a parent. This is simple at face value, but sadly many people, particularly black Americans, give birth to children out of wedlock, most of the time fatherless, sometimes to mothers who are teenagers. 72% of black households are headed by a single mother. In contrast, only 25% of white households are headed by a single mother. Asians, 17%. If 83% of Asian households have two sources of income, is it any surprise then that Asian households have significantly higher household income than Black households? Black households are usually headed by a single mom, one income. Therefore, they're going to be poorer on average. No one, not even the white man, is forcing these children to be fatherless.
But
Hey, show them the rest of the coon stuff, man.
then I came across, I don't know who this is through Montclair, friends with your...
They got all kinds of coon gear. They
Look,
got
they-
coon shoes, coon jackets.
Yeah, they got matching coon shoes and jackets. I mean, that damn jacket is clean.
Got the big red lips all over the jacket, man, with the eyeballs. Man, that's a good coon jacket.
Now, before I say there's a crime here, I gotta see if there's intent. Was this apparel put on the market to offend Black people? Think about this now. Let's get serious.
It all depends, really. Now, if they put all this stuff together and they send it to the governor of Virginia to be a spokesperson, then they was trying to offend Black people. Now, if this is just an honest mistake, you ain't got no intent, man.
Like-
they just thought it was cute with the big red lips and the eyeballs on the jacket, man.
Yeah, for Black people, I'm telling you this. I mean, not Black people. White people are really naive to this stuff.
Yeah, you can't always say they racist, man.
Now,
It was a good-looking coon gear, though, man. You had a good idea behind it.
yeah.
Out-of-wedlock birth and fatherlessness is completely their fault. And the mindset of abandoning your girlfriend comes from their culture and lifestyle, and it contributes to their continuing poverty. In conclusion, white privilege as a concept does not make any sense economically speaking because Asians and certain African ethnicities have a higher income than whites. In addition, a lot of the reasons why certain ethnicities have less income, household or otherwise, is of their own doing. Keep that in mind the next time someone, a liberal, brings up white privilege.